What is good, guys? So today we have a very special video. My partner Julian and we actually hit 100K on our store just yesterday. Today is the 24th. Not sure when this will be posted, but we did hit 100K on our store. We have been scaling this up for about a month now, and you can see we've been pretty consistent. We've just been trying to fix some back-end problems so we can scale up even further than the 3K days. But yes, this is the store that I'm running with my partner Julian, and we are looking to scale this up even further very soon. But in today's video, I want to talk about how we've actually been able to achieve this 100K, and I would attribute most of that success, obviously not all of it, but most of it to VSLs. We've been very dialed in on VSLs, and I really do believe that this is the reason why we've been able to scale up and be consistent for a little over a month or two now on these 3K days. So in this video, we are going to go over my entire process for making VSLs. I'm going to break down all the fundamentals. I'm going to break down the entire process. So this might be a bit of a fat video, but I swear it's going to be one of the most valuable videos that you watch. And this should give you a really good understanding of how to get started with VSLs and start crushing, making some cash yourself. Alright, cool. So let's go to step one. So step one is actually going to be an identity shift. Now I know this is a pretty strange way to start this off, but if you're going to be making VSLs that actually scale, the first thing you need to do is understand the actual skill set that you need to develop in order to make good VSLs, and that skill set is going to be direct response marketing. So essentially your identity, let's write this down here. So essentially your identity is going to be a direct response marketer. Now, why do I say it's important to identify as a direct response marketer before you even get your feet wet with VSLs? Well, the reason is because it is actually the skill set that makes you the money. So the reason that I say you need to identify as a direct response marketer before you start making VSLs is essentially because you just want to have the understanding that the skill set is what actually makes you the money. Unfortunately, a lot of gurus have taught you that mentorship equals money. But unfortunately, this is not true. It is actually the skill set, again, that is what is going to help you be making money. And just to give you a very quick definition of direct response marketing, direct response is a type of marketing designed to elicit an instant response by encouraging prospects to take a specific action. Direct response advertisements must trigger immediate action from prospects since the goal is to generate leads quickly. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say that advertising on Meta with a dropshipping product, with cold traffic, trying to get sales immediately would probably be classified as direct response marketing. But just understand that the main identity shift you need to make is that you are now a direct response marketer. You're not a dropshipper. You're definitely not a branded or AI dropshipper. You're a direct response marketer. Now, of course, once you master this skill set, you're also going to need to master operating your e-com store, specifically the back end, customers, customer experience. But I would consider that more of an operations skill set, and we're not going to be going into that today. We're just going to be talking about VSLs. Cool. So now that you're a direct response marketer, we can move on to step two, which is going to be understanding the stages of awareness. So some of you may be familiar with the stages of awareness already. I know that there's been honestly quite a few videos, quite a bit of talk about it. This is one of the main concepts from the book Breakthrough Advertising, which I know has gained some popularity over the last few years in ecom. But if you're not familiar with the stages of awareness, let me just briefly break it down for you. So essentially, without giving you a textbook definition, the stages of awareness, you can kind of just think of them as a roadmap or as this journey that a customer goes on throughout their time, realizing that they have a problem and essentially finding a way to deal with it. So it goes all the way from people who maybe they know that they have a symptom, like maybe they have some knee pain, but they don't actually know what the problem is, all the way up to people who actually know about your product and are getting ready to buy it. And everything in the middle, that's the stages of awareness. So just to give you a brief overview of these, there's 5 different stages of awareness. So we have unaware, and if a customer is unaware, this means they aren't aware of their desire or their need to solve the problem, or they won't admit it. This could also be somebody who maybe they're noticing a symptom, potentially knee pain, but they don't actually know what the specific problem is. So they're kind of sitting there thinking, there's something seems to be maybe a little bit wrong with my knee. I don't really know what it is, but I'm having this little bit of pain in my knee, so I don't know. Maybe I should figure it out, but maybe I won't. Maybe it's not that important. That's kind of somebody in the unaware stage of awareness. Now, if you have someone in the problem aware stage of awareness, this is maybe somebody, back to our example with knee pain, this is maybe somebody who had those symptoms and maybe they said, you know what, let me just get a little checkup at the doctor. And the doctor says, oh, you've got something seriously wrong with your knee. You've got this torn ligament in your knee and this is your specific problem. And essentially, they get diagnosed with the problem. And at this point, they know exactly what problem they have, but they don't know how to solve it yet. They haven't even started thinking about solutions. They just know specifically that they have a problem. The next stage of awareness, and we see this one come up pretty commonly in ecom, is going to be the solution aware stage of awareness. So this means somebody would know that there's solutions to their problems, but maybe they don't know about any specific products to solve it, or maybe they are starting to get a little bit familiar with some of the specific products, but maybe they haven't tried anything, or maybe what they have tried hasn't worked, so they don't really know any specific product that's actually going to work for their problem. Back to our knee pain example, this could potentially be somebody who takes some pills, maybe they do some exercises, but nothing really works to solve their knee pain, and they're still just stuck with this knee that's in pain. They don't know how to fix it, and they're just kind of stuck. They know that they want to fix the problem, but they haven't found anything that actually works yet. And so essentially, they're solution aware. The next stage of awareness, which honestly, this is the stage of awareness that you're going to see most commonly in Callow data ads, which is why we'll talk about it later, but which is why I don't believe that Callow data ads are really that ideal to scale with because they're more bottom of funnel. They're speaking to people who are quote unquote product aware. They know that the product exists, but they aren't completely aware of all it does or they're not convinced how well it does it. If you look at a lot of the Callow data videos out there, you're essentially just going to see people holding the product up in the camera saying this is XYZ product, it does XYZ, okay, great, but this person's getting commission, so how do we know they're actually telling the truth? So they say, okay, well, I know about the product, but I don't really know if I'm convinced to buy this or not. And especially on Meta, it's going to be very hard to get someone to purchase a product on their first time seeing the ad if it's one of these styles of videos that just kind of slaps the product in their face and is going to leave somebody just a bit confused, a bit uneasy or distrusting about the product and not ready to buy it. And that's why usually you only see ads like this work if there's already a very, very small audience that's ready to purchase the product. And again, with Meta, you're going to have your most scalable ads within these unaware and problem aware stages of awareness because these are just a more broad group of people. And then lastly, you have people who are most aware, and these are people that essentially know about your product and what it does, but they haven't gotten around to purchasing it yet. And this is going to be most likely your retargeting ads. Maybe you run a ad where it says, hey, we're running a massive sale, and somebody finally says, okay, I've already been thinking about buying this product, and I'm going to go ahead and buy it now because they have an image ad that says they're doing a buy one, get one free sale. And that would essentially be someone who's most aware. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make with their ads, especially with direct response, Meta, and ecom, is that most of their ads are going to be in this product aware and most aware stage of awareness, and they don't even know that these are the very smallest audiences that you can be targeting. This graph right here sums it up pretty well. So you have your unaware audience up here, which is your broadest audience. Again, these are people that they don't even know they have a problem yet. So of course they're going to be a bit harder to market to, but if you are able to market to them, you have a massive audience to tap into. Same with problem aware, they're just slightly more down the funnel. Then as you get into solution aware, product aware, and purchase aware, otherwise known as most aware, these are very small audiences. These are people that have already been through this journey of buying products, potentially knowing about your product, and potentially even already deciding that they want to buy your product. And these are always going to be smaller audiences than the unaware or problem aware audiences. And that is why if you really want to be a master at direct response, you're going to be targeting these unaware and problem aware audiences a little more than product aware and most aware. Solution aware is pretty solid too. I would say the top 3 stages of awareness that you're going to want to be targeting with your VSLs is going to be unaware, problem aware, and solution aware. And again, like I said, the biggest mistake most people make with their ads is that they're mostly all product aware or most aware. They're either ripping CaloData videos that are just product aware videos, or they're just throwing up image ads with a sale and hoping for the best with most aware style ads. But most of your success, especially with VSLs, is going to be within these unaware, problem aware, and solution aware stages of awareness. All right, so once you have a solid foundational and fundamental understanding of the stages of awareness, step 3 is going to be finding your customer's stage of awareness. Now, this is basically the reason why you want to understand the stages of awareness so that you can actually understand where your specific customer is at on this spectrum of the stages of awareness. And usually the way that I like to do this is by doing a search on Reddit. I like to look up the problem, I like to look up the product on Reddit and just simply see what kind of posts I can find. Now basically you're just looking for posts that are popular, that are getting a lot of engagement, because that means they're very relatable. Now I don't think I have the exact engagement for these Reddit posts, but we're going to go through a few and I'm going to explain to you how I would know which stage of awareness this customer is in based on the language that they're using. So this first Reddit post here, we have this person saying, "I just moved. What could be the cause of my scalp flaking and itching? I just moved to LA from the Midwest and have been having issues with my scalp feeling super itchy and flaky. I'm noticing slightly higher hair fallout too since moving. My best guess is hard water, since I came from a place with water softener installed and now rent an apartment with no softener. However, I've heard that dry air and pollution can cause these things too. My skin isn't super itchy, just my scalp. Anyone else notice these things or know what could be the main culprit in LA? Appreciate the help." Now, of course, this is a little more specific to LA, but when I look at this, I'm going to consider this customer unaware. Why? Because they're seeing a symptom, their scalp is flaking and itching, but they don't actually know why it's happening. So they're having this symptom, they're having this quote unquote problem, but they don't actually know what the problem is. So it would be your job as the direct response marketer to say, hey, is your scalp flaking and itching? This might be the real cause and what you can do to fix it. And then you're able to kind of take some of this information in here. Maybe it's because they have no softener. Maybe you say your shower needs a filter on it in order to filter out the water and keep your scalp healthy. But just by looking at this, we can get a pretty good idea that this customer might be unaware. So let's write that down, unaware. And if you're wondering how we would actually market to this specific person, don't worry, we're getting to that right after this section. Great. So we know that this customer is unaware. Now let's move on and let's see what would the next customer potentially be. So this person says, "How do I control seborrheic dermatitis and keep my scalp clean without washing too often? I've struggled with SD pretty much all my life. I would just keep my hair very short, use dandruff shampoo every 2 days. However, I decided I want to grow my hair out now, blah, 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 blah." All right. So this person is clearly aware of their problem and they're asking, how do I control this? So they're not really talking about any specific solutions that they've been trying. They're kind of saying, I haven't really tried too many solutions. I don't really know how to do this. And so I'm asking, how do I control this specific problem right here? I'll call it SD because I don't actually know how to pronounce it. But how do I control that problem and keep my scalp clean without washing too often? Now, a lot of times the way you can spot a problem-aware audience is by this word right here, this 3-letter word, how. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I control this? How do I fix that? If you see this "how do I," that's a very good indication that your customer is problem aware. Now, another thing with unaware audiences, a really good indication is what or why. What is this or why is it happening? That's a really good indication that your customer is unaware. But how do I, and it followed up by a specific problem, really good indication of a problem aware audience. Cool, so we'll write down problem aware. And again, just to recap, this specific customer, they're aware of their problem, they don't really know of any solutions to fix it, hence making them problem aware. Cool, cool. So we have this next post right here. This person says, "Itchy scalp, no flakes, have tried almost everything." So you guys are probably getting the hang of this by now, but essentially some language that this person is using that gives us an indication that this might be a solution aware customer would be this "have tried almost everything." So this is a person who's definitely trying a bunch of solutions, but nothing is working yet. And maybe it's because they're not even attacking the real problem. So in this case, this customer would be solution aware. And it may be your job as the direct response marketer to actually address that in your hook and say, "Hey, have you tried everything for your itchy scalp and nothing is working?" Well, maybe you're not actually attacking the real cause. So in this specific scenario, and again, we're going to go over this, but maybe you tell them, "Hey, this is why nothing is working, and this is what you'd actually need in order to fix this problem." Cool. So again, we've got the unaware audience, which is the what or why. We've got the problem aware, how do I do this, how do I fix that? And then we've got the solution aware, I've tried this, I've tried that, nothing works. Cool. So then lastly, we have this post here where somebody is specifically calling out a product that is supposed to fix this problem and it is asking, has anyone tried the Royce Derm Seborrheic Dermatitis and Psoriasis Cream? Looks like all herbal ingredients. So essentially, we can kind of make an assumption here that, okay, this person knows they have the problem. They've maybe tried other solutions. They know about this specific solution, and they're just trying to figure out, is this the actual solution that I need and that will work for me? So if we go back to our stages of awareness, which should be somewhere up here, product aware, they know your product exists, but they aren't completely aware of all that it does, or they're not convinced on how well it does it. And essentially, we can definitely see some hints that this specific customer might be product aware, but they just need that little push forward to find out if these ingredients are exactly what's going to fix their problem and if they should actually purchase this product. So we'll consider this product aware. Cool. So now you understand the stages of awareness, you understand how to find your customer's stage of awareness, and essentially this is just going to be a starting point, right? Each ad is going to have a starting point based on the customer's stage of awareness. And how do you actually complete that script? How do you actually put that into motion in your VSL? So step 4 is going to be the message market match. And this is honestly one of the most important concepts that you can possibly learn as a direct response marketer. This is actually from a YouTube video. This guy's name is Roy Furr, Royfurr. And this guy is honestly just a solid direct response marketer overall. He's pretty low key. He's got like 10K subs. He's not related to ecom whatsoever. But anytime I'm trying to teach somebody or help somebody learn about message market match, this is always the video that I refer them to. And basically what this guy does is he explains to you that based on each stage of awareness, there's a specific message that you should be portraying to them in order to have the best results possible, in order to effectively communicate with that customer. So for example, we can see here that if your customer is unaware, well, what's the next step in their journey? Well, they have to find out about the problem. If your customer is problem aware, well, what do they have to find out next in order to keep moving forward? Maybe you have to agitate that problem a bit. You have to show them why that problem is actually worth solving. Likewise, if your customer is solution aware, then most likely you're going to be invalidating those other alternatives, telling them, hey, This is why those other alternatives didn't work, and this is what you actually need to use instead in order to fix your problem. Then, if they know about your product, that's when you kind of just want to explain to them your USPs, or essentially why you are the solution that they need to be using. And at that point, they should be deal ready. And once they're deal ready, meaning most aware, they're ready to buy your product, that's when you give them that banger offer, and that's when you ask them to purchase. Now, this is again why I see so many people failing with VSLs or just ads in general, just direct response in general, because they don't truly understand this message market match. So many people will maybe start out with like an unaware hook, but they're very quickly just going straight to their product, quickly explaining their product. Hey, this is our offer, go and buy it. But the thing is, you have to think about this from the customer's perspective. The customer is making a buying decision. The customer is skeptical. They're trying to do the best thing for themselves. And so they don't really want you to just slam your product in their face. They don't really even want to feel like they're being sold to. They want this to feel like the natural solution that they should just be buying because it's just that good. It's just naturally what they should be buying because you've done such a good job marketing and explaining to them, hey, this is your problem. This is why it's important to fix it. Here's what's not going to work. Here's what is going to work. And now we can finally give them that banger offer. So this is a concept that I would say definitely I would attribute a lot of my success specifically to this concept because this is essentially going to be the framework for scripting your VSLs. I have a lot of people always ask me like, hey, how do you actually write the script for your VSL? How do you make your VSL? Literally, this is the framework. Or like they ask me what's the framework or what structure of video do I use? The structure of video that I use is understanding where my customer is at on the stage of awareness and then using message market match to bring them from where they're at down the funnel to purchasing my product. And that's essentially the only structure of video that I use, the only VSL structure that I use. Now, obviously, there's different stories, there's different aspects mixed into it, but at a very base foundational level, this message market match is the structure that you're going to be using for your VSLs. So for example, let's go back to our Reddit post here. If we're going to match our message to each person's stage of awareness, well, let's take a look. If they're unaware, then we want to educate them about their problem. So for example, we have this person who says, what could be causing my scalp to flake and itch? So we may want to spend a little bit of time in the beginning of that video saying, hey, if your scalp is flaking and itching, doctors say that this might be the reason why that's happening, and you would probably want to lead them into this problem right here. So then we take this person and we say, okay, well, you actually have this problem of seborrheic dermatitis. Well, now you need to know, why is that so important to actually fix? Well, if you don't fix it quickly, you're going to be dealing with it forever. You might have to shave your hair out. You'll never be able to grow your hair. This, that, and the other. And now you've got them to a point where they're problem aware and they're saying, okay, I need to actually fix this problem. So how do I do it? Again, if you're problem aware, you want to agitate that pain. Cool. So once they know they have the problem, once we've agitated that problem, then we'd want to go into telling them, hey, you may have tried this, or if you're thinking about trying this, we're going to tell you what's not going to work and why it's not going to work. Again, if they're solution aware, you're going to want to be invalidating those other alternatives, those other competitors, because that's the information that your customer needs right now. They already know about their problem. They're already agitated to the point where they're looking for solutions. You don't have to go back and tell them, hey, you have this problem. Hey, this is why you need to solve this problem. They already know they need to solve the problem, and they're already looking for solutions to do so. So in this case, you wouldn't need to do any more than just simply invalidate those other alternatives, those other competitors, and keep it moving. So in this case specifically, we'd say, hey, you maybe have tried this shampoo, you maybe have tried this powder, but you see, those aren't really going to work. They're not actually addressing the root cause. They're not actually addressing the actual problem you have, and that's why it's not actually working. And if you were going to have something that was going to work, it would have to address this cause of seborrheic dermatitis. It would have to be something that does X, Y, Z. It would have to have this ingredient, that ingredient. And that's kind of how you lead them up to, okay, well, now that you know that you need that type of product, now that you know why everything else is not going to work and what actually would work, okay, well, we just so happen to have this product that does exactly what you need in order to fix your problem. And that's kind of how you naturally flow people up to being ready to hear about a product. I think that a big mistake a lot of people make is just not using this proper message market match, not being able to correctly flow your customer down the stages of awareness with that natural message market match flow, flowing them from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to you aware to deal ready. So I would definitely recommend you guys go and check out this video by Roy Furr. It's called Message Market Match, and he's going to explain to you how to address each specific stage of awareness and how to take them from where they're at all the way down to being ready to purchase your product. All right. So now that you know you're a direct response marketer, now that you understand the stages of awareness, now that you know how to find your customer's stage of awareness, now that you understand message market match and how to address each customer's stage of awareness based on where they're actually at in that journey, step 5 is going to be storytelling. So just to give you a bit of context here, the reason why I say storytelling is so important and why it's such a crucial step is because I had these 4 steps down pat for quite a while, but it wasn't until I implemented actual storytelling that I started really crushing it with VSLs. Julian and I really started popping off, having consistent winners, and essentially the reason behind that is that yes, while it's really important to bring people through these stages of awareness, it's also important to do it in a natural way. If you just simply tell them, hey, this is your problem, this is why you need to fix it, they're not really going to be listening because it's going to feel like more of an advertisement than a natural story. And so what we've been doing that's been working extremely well, and what I see a lot of other winning VSLs do, is simply mix in a very relatable story for that customer audience to latch onto while they get naturally taken through the stages of awareness. And I actually have an example here. I couldn't add this, unfortunately, to the Miro board here, but I do have the video pulled up in my Google Drive. So we're going to actually watch this video and we're going to talk about how exactly it takes customers through the stages of awareness, implements everything we're talking about here, and actually tells a natural story that gets this specific customer ready to purchase. Alright guys, so let's quickly talk about the hook and the headline first before we dive into the actual VSL. Basically, this headline says, don't stretch your calves if your heels hurt, do this instead. So we can basically assume that they're speaking to somebody who may be aware that they have some calf and heel pain, and maybe they're doing this stretch, but they don't actually know what the actual problem is or how they can fix it. So this headline is incentivizing them to continue watching because they say, do this instead. So let's go ahead and have a look at this video, and we're going to explain how it takes them through the message market match while also telling a very natural story.
Don't stretch your calves if your heels hurt. Do this instead.
I've struggled with heel pain from my work boots for about a year. As a bigger guy at almost 300 pounds, walking all day on concrete floors is brutal on my feet. The first time, the sharp stabbing pain incapacitated me for a month. I mean, even when it calmed down, it kept coming back. And over the past 14 months, I tried everything to manage my foot pain, but nothing worked. Last summer, I was in so much pain, we had to cancel our family trip to Disneyland. It was heartbreaking because our kids had been looking forward to it all year. And I asked myself, is this the life I'm going to live? Sidelined, frustrated, and a burden to my family. I refused to accept this reality, and I promised I was going to find a solution.
Podiatrist told me that my heel pain is due to inflammation.
It's when a ligament at the bottom of the foot gets inflamed. And he suggested rest.
Alright guys, so let's stop the video there for a second and just head back to our message market match. Now essentially you can see that in the very first minute of this video, what they're doing is they're agitating the pain. So they're really showing somebody with this problem why they need to be fixing it. They're going to miss their trip to Disneyland. They're having all this external pain, all this social pain that's happening because they haven't fixed this problem yet. They're not only in pain with their heels, he also had to cancel his trip to Disneyland. Now his wife and his kids is upset with him. And essentially, it's just kind of taking over his life. So they're really agitating that pain to get this customer to understand that, yes, this problem is something worth solving. And then very quickly, after they start out with that opening story, they go ahead and explain exactly why this problem actually happens, which is because of this
solution.
Podiatrist told me that my heel pain is due to inflammation.
Inflammation. So essentially now the customer is so agitated about this pain, they know they need to solve it. Now they know the root cause. Okay, it's due to inflammation. So how do I actually fix my inflammation?
It's when a ligament at the bottom of the foot gets inflamed. And he suggested rest, icing, stretching, orthopedic shoes, and braces. If those didn't help, the next step was cortisone shots and custom orthotics. I tried well-rated orthopedic sneakers with cushioned soles, but the pain returned, and I ordered 5 different brands of insoles from Amazon. They were either flimsy, or too rigid, or just too painful to wear, and night splints were uncomfortable to sleep in. Despite daily stretching, icing, and resting, the stabbing heel pain persisted, and the only thing that kept me going was painkillers. Desperate, I agreed to $600 custom orthotics and prayed for a miracle. While waiting for them, I searched online for answers. I found forums and Facebook groups about heel pain. I watched YouTube videos, and I even read medical journals. I mean, that's how desperate I was to find a solution. Many people tried the same things I did with mixed results. Then
So for about another minute or so, you can see how they take them through the other solutions and really invalidating those solutions. So they talk about, these are all the solutions I was offered. These are all the solutions that I used. These are solutions that other people used, but nothing really worked. The only thing that was actually working for me was painkillers. So essentially, we're really invalidating these other alternatives, and people are at this point thinking, okay, well, I really want to solve this problem, but obviously nothing is working for this guy, so what actually is going to solve this problem? And essentially, people are going to keep watching now to want to find the actual solution to this problem.
Stumbled across a testimonial. A woman explained she suffered for years, and the only thing that helped were special insoles
For heel pain.
Hundreds of comments on the post praised these insoles as miracle workers. They're called Xstance Insoles 2.0, developed by innovative foot care brand Xstance along with top foot and ankle surgeon Dr. Gregory Pomeroy. She explained that all you had to do was place them in your everyday and work shoes and let them work. Unlike other shoes or insoles, they offer unique construction.
Firm arch support designed to enhance comfort and reduce strain and inflammation.
Heel padding that absorbs shocks from concrete floors, deep heel cup that stabilizes your feet and keeps them in the corrected position, and a soft cushioning layer offering exceptional comfort. All these comments were convincing, so I thought, what's a few more bucks after months of suffering? I visited their official website and found that they offer a 90-day money-back guarantee.
Awesome. So at this point, we can see how they actually very naturally and within this story are able to introduce their own product. They don't come out and straight up say, hey, this is the product that you need. He says, I saw a testimonial of a woman who was using this product. After I did all my research, after I did all my due diligence to try and solve this problem, finally I saw this testimonial of this woman who said that this fixed her problem, and I figured, you know what, what's a few more bucks? I'll give it a try. So really just, again, justifying that price, almost subliminally getting them deal ready by saying, you know what, it's only a little bit more money. I've already tried so much, I'm just going to give this a try. So they're really introducing the solution, talking about the USPs, or explaining exactly why this product is different and why it actually works. And now everything they're doing at this point is essentially just taking them from that product aware stage, now that they know about the product, to that most aware stage where they're actually going to be ready for a deal. So they're really talking about their USPs, they're talking about testimonials, they're talking about the results, the price justification, and so we can kind of just keep watching and see exactly how they warm up these customers and get them ready to purchase this product.
For up to 3 months, I could return them for a full refund, no risk. They shipped from Utah, so I received them within 2 days. When they arrived, I swapped out the insoles from my work shoes with Xstance. I wasn't expecting much because I'd been let down so many times before. They felt comfortable immediately, but the jury was still out. By the end of my shift, I was walking without wincing in pain. I was shocked. The next day, at least 80% of my heel pain disappeared. After a week, I forgot I had any pain. I mean, can you imagine that? I don't know what magic potion they put in these, but I swear they're life-changing. It's the first time in a year that I could stand and walk for more than an hour without feeling like I was stepping on glass. Even my knees and hips are better now. I still can't believe how well they work. I immediately bought 3 more pairs so I wouldn't have to switch them between shoes. Their website says it's a unique blend of support and cushion that eliminates shocks and
Awesome. So we can also see that, again, they're just giving more results, giving more testimonials, talking about how, hey, I went back and bought 3 more. That's how good they were. Again, getting them deal ready. Hey, maybe there's going to be a pack of 3. You might need 3 of these instead of just 1. So they're doing a lot of work here after telling that initial story of just selling their product and explaining why it's so much better, sharing results, sharing testimonials, and just explaining the great product that this is.
strains and allows your body to heal the inflammation. Believe me, once you've gone through almost 2 years of not being able to walk without limping, putting pressure on your feet in the morning, or simply feeling good at the end of the day, being pain-free is like getting a new lease on life. So please don't make the same mistake I did. If Xstance insoles are still available, get yours now.
If I don't wear them in my shoe.
So yeah, you can honestly see very well in that video how, yes, they use the message market match. They understand exactly where their customer is at in the stages of awareness. They're a bit more unaware or problem aware. They know they have this heel pain, but they don't really know how to fix it. So this ad does a great job of introducing the pain and agitating it, talking about what the actual problem is, talking about other solutions that didn't work and why they didn't work, and then finally introducing their product, explaining exactly why it works better than all the other alternatives, sharing some results, sharing some testimonials, sharing some reasons to actually purchase now, sharing that they may have a bundle deal, making them deal ready. And then at the very end, you can see that they are playing some testimonials while they ask the customer to click below. So this is honestly, in my opinion, a almost perfect VSL. You can also see how well they threw in the storytelling, which is telling the story about this guy who is a little bit older, a little bit bigger, worse construction, probably just a regular middle-class American, going to be very relatable for a lot of people that are in a similar situation. So they're going to really latch onto that story, and it's going to help take them through these stages of awareness very naturally so that they can just naturally come to the same conclusion that the other customers did. Awesome. So hopefully that makes sense. At this point, we're up to understanding the stages of awareness, finding your customer's stage of awareness, understanding message market match, and using a story that relates to your specific customer to bring it all together. Now, lastly, we're going to go to step 6 here, and this is just going to be mastering headlines. So why are headlines actually so important? I would consider headlines to be one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of a VSL, because essentially a headline, I'm going to try and break this down as simply as possible, but a headline equals perceived value. So a headline equals perceived value. So essentially, why are people actually watching your video? Well, of course, a lot of gurus are going to tell you, oh, your hook, it's got to be flashy, it's got to have a wow factor. Well, that's not necessarily the case, not from my perspective at least. You see, a headline, especially one like this, don't stretch your calves if your heels hurt, do this instead. I mean, what's really that flashy or that wow factor about this headline? Well, there's not really anything, but it does create some perceived value. Somebody is going to look at this headline and say, hey, I have this pain in my calves as well. I'm actually trying this same exercise that this person is trying, but wait, do this instead? Wait, there's something I can do instead? That person now has created some perceived value in their mind, thinking, okay, if I watch this video, I'm actually going to find a better solution for my calf and heel pain rather than just stretching it against a wall. So the first thing that's important, again, when you're creating a headline is going to be your stage of awareness. And then number 2 is going to be your P plus P plus B formula. So essentially, this is the formula that I use to create all my headlines. It's the P plus P plus B powerful headline formula. This is actually a formula made by Eugene Schwartz. So essentially what P plus P plus B stands for is going to be proof plus pain plus benefit. Let me write that down. Cool. So proof plus pain plus benefit. And essentially what that means is you're going to lead with proof, right? So the first thing you want to do is establish some sort of credibility, or at least at some point in the very beginning of the video, you want to establish some form of credibility. Why? Because you have to give these persons someone that's worth listening to. I mean, why do you think people listen to celebrities, listen to athletes, listen to politicians? It's because they see them as an authority figure. So you really need to lead with some form of credibility or authority just initially to help them understand, okay, why should I be listening to this person? Sure, you might have the greatest information of the world, but why should I actually be listening to you? So that's going to be your proof. Your pain is essentially going to be relating to their specific situation, their specific problem based on their stage of awareness. Now again, this person is saying don't stretch your calves if your heels hurt. So their problem is essentially just that maybe they're stretching their calves and their heels hurt. Whereas another problem could be that specific inflammation in your knee if you have inflammation in your knee. But you want to make sure that this is very specific to the actual problem that your specific customer is having based on their stage of awareness. And then lastly, the B or the benefit part of this headline formula is going to be the part where you kind of hint at a benefit or hint at a solution or a transformation. And of course, in this headline, they say do this instead. And just to kind of show you how they introduce credibility very quickly, we'll go through this hook one more time. I've struggled with heel pain from my work boots for about a year. So essentially, it's not necessarily a doctor, it's not necessarily a authority figure as maybe you would think, but it's actually this person saying that they've dealt with this problem for about a year, and right away they're introducing some form of credibility. Hey, I'm qualified to talk about this subject because I've been dealing with the same thing for about a year. So right away, these customers, they know what the problem is, it relates to them, and they know that if they watch this video, they're going to figure out what to do instead. And then they also know that they have someone that's a credible source, someone who's actually been dealing with the problem for about a year, that's about to be giving them this information. So that is kind of the golden standard for a headline: proof plus pain plus benefit. And you just want to make sure that that is aligned with your customer's stage of awareness. So hopefully that makes sense. And at this point, you understand that you need to identify as a direct response marketer. You need to understand the stages of awareness. You need to be able to find your customer's stage of awareness. You need to understand message market match. You need to be able to implement message market match into a story that you can just naturally help customers flow through these stages of awareness. And then you need to master the P plus B formula based on the customer's stage of awareness, and that a headline is actually perceived value, and that is how someone is going to decide whether or not they're going to watch your video. Cool. And then lastly, step 7, we are not going to Chad scale, we're going to Julian scale. And essentially what I mean by that is once you start making money, you don't want to be spamming budgets. As you can see, if we go back over here, Julian and I, we've been taking this store very slow. We've actually just been very consistent around 2-3K days for about a month or two now, and we're not really rushing into scaling because, again, another thing a lot of gurus are not going to be telling you is that when you start scaling up, when you start making orders, you're going to have to get feedback. There's going to be problems on the back end that you're going to have to solve, and it's more likely if you just start Chad scaling and increasing this budget like crazy that your store is probably going to have some severe back-end issues. It might be hard for you to keep that store alive for very long, and it may end up dying very quickly. So once you get all these first 6 steps done and you start to print some cash, you're going to make sure that you are not Chad scaling, but you are actually Julian scaling. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. That was a nice special little video for the $100,000 milestone on this store that I have with Julian. And hopefully you guys got some value from that. I hope that you guys will all be able to go and start making VSLs, start crushing it. And if you guys do have any other questions about any of the concepts that we covered today, feel free to just join the Mega Discord in the description. So there's tons of free content in there. We have a free course, and we're also coming out with a brand new one very soon. And we also have calls every single week where you can ask any questions, and we don't do any gatekeeping. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Looking forward to updating you guys again when we hit our next milestone of 1 million. And without any further ado, I will talk to you guys later. Peace.